Civilizations were spurred into development and success through the abundance of natural resources within a given area. This brought more people into smaller areas, increasing contact between them, and as they settled the land, they began to domesticate wildlife. This close contact brought about the evolution of diseases that led to them spreading across species and between civilizations. Over thousands of years, pathogens have continued to mutate and spread into the population, at times leading to widespread outbreaks. Historians can study the patterns of past pandemics in an attempt to learn about them and to relate them to each other into the present. They study history by patterning, arranging, identifying, and classifying the events of the past. The term pandemic was first used in 1666 BC to describe a disease that is continuously spreading in a country. Over the centuries, zoonotic pathogens have sickened and killed thousands of people at a time over the course of their outbreaks. Under natural conditions, a pathogen is found exclusively in a specific species. However, some can evolve and cross species from its host animal to humans, leading to an emergence of a new deadly infection in the human population. The first recorded pandemic was the Athens Plague, which occurred during the Peloponnesian War and decimated two-thirds of the human population, leading to Athens losing the war. Following a span of several centuries, a new plague emerged, called the Antonine Plague, which led to the death of one-third of the known population. The next plague to hit was known as the Justinian Plague, and it is estimated to have killed 26% of the human population and destroyed the economies of the empires. The Black Death decimated the human population to almost 150 million in just 50 years. It was during this plague that attempts to control the spread resulted in quarantining and the creation of personal protective equipment for plague doctors. There were 7 cholera pandemics caused by contaminated water. The first 6 pandemics are estimated to have caused 1 million deaths. However, the 7th pandemic is estimated to actually cause 2.86 million infections and 95,000 deaths every year. The Spanish flu emerged at the end of World War I and is speculated to have shifted the course of the war in favor of the Allies. It was spread via troop movements and killed enough young people to drop the U.S. average lifespan by 12 years. In West Africa during the 1920s, the disease AIDS was identified. It has been spreading globally since 1981, and it is estimated that this disease has killed 36 million people, with another 36 million currently infected. The SARS virus became the first 21st century virus and was controlled because of better disease management and quarantine protocols, as well as improved medical facilities. The swine flu infected 1/10 of the population very swiftly, and while it was not as deadly as other flus, it did disproportionately cause more deaths in young people. The Ebola epidemic is caused by an unknown source, and originally it had small deadly outbreaks with fatality rates at over 80%. This disease showcased how unprepared the healthcare system was to deal with an outbreak of this nature. The first social media pandemic was the Zika virus in 2007. This disease had a low mortality rate, but caused many birth defects in babies born to infected mothers. In 2020, COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. It is believed to have infected more than 430 million people with a death rate at over 5 million people. This pandemic brought on global quarantining, social distancing, and mandated lockdowns throughout the world. A societal problem we are facing because of this pandemic is that the hospital system and economies have strained and even buckled at times under the pressure of this disease. When the hospital systems become overwhelmed, people start dying from other illnesses at a higher rate because the medical community can't keep up with the needs of all the patients. New waves continue to strain not only our hospital systems, but our economies as well, making prices soar because the scarcity of goods affects the supply and demand of our market economy, causing inflation to grow out of control. Historically, some of the pandemics played a role in swinging the tides of war in the victor's favor and can be seen to spread geographically via troop movements or trade routes between societies. A majority of the societies impacted by these diseases suffered economically because the population was diminished due either to illness or death. The economy also suffered when trade routes were closed during quarantine. The death tolls for many of these diseases were quite high and probably caused many of the survivors to suffer psychologically as they watched so many of the people they knew and loved suffer and die. Some historians believe that there were large economic advances following some of the most devastating pandemics. The Black Death, for example, helped advance society because it forced the development of labor-saving technologies to compensate for the labor that was lost due to the plague. Additionally, the discovery of germs, bacteria, and viruses advanced medication and treatment of diseases and helped to establish preventative measures to protect against the spread of infections. Ultimately, historians can reflect back on past societies and pandemics to look for patterns that may help our modern societies. For instance, implementing quarantine measures was an effective way to slow the spread of certain pandemics in the past and was implemented by the government in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. These shutdowns led to negative impacts on the economies of many of the countries around the world, just as they did in the past. This lack of labor caused goods to become scarce and depression to soar in the population as people were forced to socially distance themselves from others. This is similar to the problems that society faced after the Black Death killed so many people and may have been predicted when comparing the past to the present. The shutdowns have led to anger and frustration against the government. Rather than uniting us together, politicians have instead used the pandemic to further their power via emergency declarations and misinformation campaigns, thereby causing the divisiveness within our country. Prior to this, I had not realized the power that history can give us in the present through the examination of the patterns of the past.